It sounds dramatic to say a watch changed my life. But look at my wrist. You'll see something that doesn't have a heart rate monitor. It doesn't vibrate every 3 minutes to tell me I have unread notifications, and it doesn't need to be plugged into a wall every Friday night. In just 5 months, I went from 0 watches to a collection of 10. I spent 120,000 pesos or over $2,000. It was a fast, exciting, and occasionally regrettable speed run. I'm going to show you every single one of them. The SRPs, the massive discounts I hunted down, and the one day in October where I completely lost my mind and made the biggest purchase of my life. If you're a new collector or if you've been in this hobby for years, I want to share the hard lessons I learned about the difference between a good deal and a good watch. Welcome to Time Namo, where I believe you deserve another watch. We have to talk about how this madness started. Back in June 2025, a month after my birthday, I realized I hadn't bought myself any gift. That time, I've been wearing a Halo Solar Plus daily for 2 years. It's a cheap smartwatch that does its job, until I saw a self-improvement YouTube video that hit me like a sudden ice bucket of water. He said, wearing a smartwatch is like wearing a leash for notifications. You're giving technology permission to distract you whenever it wants. I looked at my wrist and realized he was right. I was a slave to technology. I also realized how rude it is to check my wrist every time it vibrates, especially during important meetings or while hanging out with my favorite people. I decided then and there to end my smartwatch phase and get a proper watch. Instead of a digital chip that updates and eventually dies, I wanted the soul of a mechanical movement, something that works because of a balance wheel and a mainspring. Perfect as a late birthday gift to myself. Thanks to those stalker-level mind-reading ads, I suddenly landed on the Seiko website. I was looking for the cheapest mechanical watch I could find, which at that time was the SNKL 47K1. I was ready to click buy until the YouTube algorithm did its thing. I saw a YouTube short of the Seiko SCVE 051, a JDM open heart model, and the way the light hits that blue sunburst dial. It was over. I didn't want the cheapest Seiko anymore. I wanted that Seiko. Luckily, it was within the budget. This was my first purchase in June. The retail price of this JDM model is 31,900 yen, which is roughly 12,000 pesos. JDM means this watch was only released in the Japanese domestic market. But I'm a researcher by nature, especially when it comes to online shopping. I hunted through Shopee and found a Japan-based shop that had it for way cheaper. By waiting for the right time and a discount voucher, I got my first ever mechanical watch for 8,461 pesos. That's a clean 30% off the tag price just by finding the right shop. When it arrived, I didn't even go to a watchmaker. I sat down, watched a tutorial, and learned how to adjust the bracelet myself. That moment, hearing the click of the pin and the feel of the steel, that was the beginning of the end for my bank account. I still wear this watch almost every day. That open heart movement at 9 o'clock is like a heartbeat indeed. I love staring at it because it is my reminder of why I left the smartwatch world behind. This watch is a forever piece in my collection for sure.
Time Namo.
Extreme satisfaction with my first watch opened up the entire YouTube rabbit hole. If you watch contents, I'm sure you know or heard the names Casio Duro, Casio, and Casio Tiffany Blue. I wanted them all. I felt like I was late to the party and I had to catch up. In July, I bought 2 watches. First was the Casio MDV 106, famously known as the Casio Duro Marlin. The retail price for this watch is $85 or around 5,000 pesos. Stores in the Philippines only have the MDV 107, which technically is the same watch but without the iconic Marlin logo on the dial. Meanwhile, online shops wanted 7,000 pesos for the Marlin version. It didn't feel right paying that amount for a quartz watch. Good thing, there's this one Casio Duro video I watched that mentioned Amazon, so I went there for the first time. He was right. It was available for only $52.45 that time. My bank had a $10 discount promo, so I pulled the trigger. My total cost was 2,510 pesos. That's a 50% discount. Many collectors warn people about how big the Duro is, but even on my tiny 6.25-inch wrist, it felt like it belonged there. I put it on a Jubilee bracelet and it suddenly looked 10 times its price. I took it snorkeling in Boracay and knowing I had 200 meters of water resistance backed by a secure screw-down crown, I wasn't worried about my watch. I was just enjoying the fishes in the ocean. That's when I appreciated the insane value this watch offers for its price point. This watch doesn't just live up to the hype. It earns it.
Time Namo.
Then came a moment of pure impulsive fun. The Pin Time 2D. I saw it on Lazada for the insane price of 237 pesos. $4. That's cheaper than a Starbucks coffee. It's a quartz watch that looks like a sketch from a comic book. I rarely wear it, only when I have the confidence to look a little unusual. But I don't regret it for a second. It taught me that a collection shouldn't be too serious. If everything in your box is a holy grail, you lose the ability to just have fun. It's ironic how a 200 peso watch can remind you of such a necessary philosophy.
Time Namo.
From August to September, I was becoming a strategist. I ended up purchasing 3 watches in September. The next on my list was the GShock Casio. I originally planned to get the all-black stealth GA2100 because it's the internet favorite. But being patient allowed me to find the upgraded version with tough solar and Bluetooth for almost the same price. The retail price of the GAB2100 is 11,280 pesos. Guess how much I got it for? Just 4,704 pesos. A 58% discount. I almost went for the all-black model, but I saw enough reviews to know the negative display is a nightmare to read. For my fellow members of the Small Wrist Club, you know the struggle of finding a GShock that doesn't look like a wall clock. But this one fits great. With its solar power, Bluetooth capability, and indestructible form, this is the most logical watch I own. I wore it on the beach, mountain, caves, and on days just for errands. This is my go-to watch when I anticipate my wrist could hit something. Very easy choice.
Time Namo.
This next one is a purchase that I have very mixed feelings about. The gold and green Casio MTP B146 with the SRP of 6,570 pesos. This was my budget PRX. I wasn't ready to spend 50,000 pesos on a Tissot PRX yet, so I bought this for only 1,993 pesos, a massive 70% discount. It's surprisingly good quality. It's so thin at just 8 millimeters, and the sunburst green dial is deep and looks perfect with gold. But here is the lesson. Every time I look at it, it reminds me of Tissot. It's a great watch, but it's a placeholder. And placeholders are dangerous because they occupy a spot in your heart that's already reserved for something else. Now that Tissot has released the 38mm PRX in titanium, I can feel my wallet trembling, though I'm also keeping a very close eye on this Citizen Tsuyosa 60.
Time Namo.
Now, my first genuine mistake. The MTP 1302 with textured ice blue dial. This model retails at 4,240 pesos. What I wanted was the Casio Tiffany blue that everyone was losing their minds over, but resellers were being ridiculous. It's always out of stock. I thought this newly released ice blue version would scratch the itch. I got it for only 1,506 pesos. Despite the 65% discount and the lovely ice blue textured dial, I wasn't happy with this purchase. I've worn it exactly twice. The case is ion-plated brass, and the bracelet feels like it's made of soda cans. It just feels cheap. For the price I got it, I shouldn't expect much. But it was a good lesson in FOMO. I didn't buy it because I loved it. I bought it because I couldn't have the one I actually wanted. If you're starting out, do not buy the alternative just because it's easier to get. $25 might not seem like much, but that's 25 bucks I've taken away from the watch I actually want. This one is definitely leaving the collection. In fact, I want this to go to one of you who is just starting their journey. More on that in a minute.
Time Namo.
And then things got out of hand. We have to talk about October 28th, the day my collection went from a hobby to an obsession. The 6th Philippine Limited Edition Seiko 5 GMT Trilogy, representing Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. I have a whole video where I reviewed these 3 watches, which I will link at the end of this video. I initially planned to buy one watch only. The photos online personally looked underwhelming, and many enthusiasts were disappointed. But I decided to go to the special release at Glorieta to experience the energy of a limited edition for the first time as a new collector. I stood in line for 5 freaking hours. By the time I got to the front, the one watch plan was dead. I was peer pressured by the new friends I met in line. And honestly, you don't stand in line for 5 hours just to buy one watch. I did something my bank account still hasn't forgiven me for. I bought all 3. Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. 90,000 pesos in a single swipe. That's the biggest purchase of my entire life. The Mindanao GMT though, it is my second most worn watch because of that stunning ice blue dial. Every time I look at it on my wrist, it feels special. It's the watch that gets me compliments from people too. But Luzon and Visayas. I actually prefer keeping them in their boxes to maintain their pristine condition rather than including them in my wrist rotation. And honestly, I have regrets. Buying a set just to have the set is for museums. I spent $1,000 on 2 watches that I'm now planning to sell because they deserve to be worn by someone who appreciates them. My experience at Glorietta was unforgettable, but the lesson was expensive.
Time Namo.
To wrap up the year, I bought the Casio Edifice Automatic EFK 100 CD in November. This felt like a full-circle moment. The retail price for this watch is 18,480 pesos. This is Casio's first automatic watch, and I wanted it to be the symbol of my first year as a collector. I imagine myself 50 years from now telling my grandchildren that I started collecting in 2025, the same year Casio made history. I got it for only 9,810 pesos, almost half its retail price. This Casio is beating with the Seiko NH35, the most reliable workhorse movement in the world. This is controversial for some enthusiasts, but for me, it's this engine that makes this Casio a certified mechanical watch. It is a beautiful bridge between the two brands that dominated my first 5 months. The carbon fiber dial is mesmerizing, and the finishing is leagues above the price point. It's missing some lume, but it reminds me that even after the splurges, I'm still a value hunter at heart.
Time Namo.
So, here we are. 10 watches. 120,000 pesos spent. If I could go back to June 2025, would I do it differently? Absolutely. I wouldn't rush. I'd skip the substitutes and the strong urge to complete the watch box as fast as possible. I'd probably have 4 or 5 incredible watches instead of 10. But that's the reality of being a new collector. You have to touch the metal, wear the mistakes, and feel the weight of the regret to understand your own taste. I'm no longer wearing notifications. I'm wearing stories. Some are stories of great deals and some are stories of impulsive mistakes. But they're all mine. If you're just starting your journey, my advice is simple. Slow down. The watches aren't going anywhere. But if you do make a mistake, don't worry about it. It's just part of the patina of being a collector. Now about that ice blue Casio. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, one of you will receive it as a gift. I want it to be a head start for someone else's collection. All you have to do is subscribe and tell me your story in the comments. What was the first watch that made you fall in love with this hobby? I'm curious to see how many of us started the same way. At the end of the day, I believe you deserve another watch. Thank you for watching. Time Namo.